Hello there, and welcome to the scruffy-looking Nerd Herders podcast. I'm your host, Tyler, bringing all things nerd and geek related. And on this episode, I'm going to be talking about Star Wars news. I'm going to be talking about Marvel stuff. I got some gaming news and some opinion pieces on some stuff that's going on with Blizzard. So, here we go. So starting things off with Star Wars, at the end of the month, Disney is debuting a brand new YouTube channel, Star Wars Kids. The channel will launch with the first shorts from a new animated series titled Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures. This series will use dialogue, sound effects, and even music from the original Star Wars films to make new animated reimaginings of classic scenes from the movies. I showed it to my son, and he seemed pretty stoked about it. He uses YouTube Kids a lot. He watches a couple streamers like Dan TDM and Pat and Jen, Minecraft stuff. But he also watches a lot of Lego stuff on there, Lego Star Wars stuff. So I think he's going to really dig this. He's not overly huge fan of the movies. Like, he'll watch them if I put them on. But for the most part, he generally really just likes the Star Wars Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels. He did like Solo. We took him to theaters to watch that. He really dug that a lot. But for the most part, he generally just likes like the animated stuff. So we'll see. Maybe this will kind of help open up his movie palette. So in other Star Wars news, there was new concept art from The Force Awakens, which indicated that Rian Johnson's take on Luke Skywalker wasn't particularly far away from existing ideas about the character's post-Return of the Jedi fate. This art itself is a rendition of Luke by an artist, Christian Alsman, who is a concept artist for The Force Awakens and Rogue One. The image shows Luke with long hair and a graying beard, similar to what we saw in the new trilogy's latest installments. In his caption, Alsman wrote, "My first image I made for Star Wars The Force Awakens. This was back in January of 2013. Luke was being described as a Colonel Kurtz type, hiding from the world in a cave. I couldn't believe I was getting to make this image, and I got a George Fabuloso on it to boot." The Colonel Kurtz, to whom Alsman refers to here, is from the film Apocalypse Now, which is based on Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. Alsman's caption claims he created the art in 2013, which is 2 years prior to the release of The Force Awakens, and this art apparently received high praise from the series creator, George Lucas himself, which indicates that one of the major driving forces behind the original trilogy liked this take on his character. Lucasfilm creative art manager Phil Szostak, who worked on The Force Awakens from pretty much the very beginning, shared this image on Twitter as well, providing additional context for the idea of Luke as a hermit through early ideas about the character as found in the art of Star Wars The Last Jedi. According to him, Luke's depiction in The Last Jedi is consistent with Lucas's vision for his character. I've been saying this since the beginning. This isn't a common opinion, but so this is something that George Lucas himself was wanting to do with Luke if he were to be doing sequel movies. And anyway, but I've been saying this, that this isn't different from what we saw of Luke Skywalker after, or even during Return of the Jedi. Because in the prequel movies, the Jedi were being trained to, anytime you saw them training, it was with lightsabers. They were rarely ever meditating. And so whenever Luke's getting trained in the original trilogy, he's not really using his lightsaber. Even whenever he goes to the cave, Yoda tells him, like, your weapons, you will not need them. So even Yoda himself has essentially flipped 180 on how to train people, how to train Jedi. Even he knew. He knew that the order was being clouded and it had fallen from what it used to be. And Luke knew the same thing too. That's why he essentially exiled himself. Anyway, I digress. That's an episode all on its own. And lastly, I guess I'll discuss this very briefly. So just a little while ago, probably just about an hour ago, it was announced that Marvel has canceled Daredevil after 3 seasons. That's really big bummer because I know that show was one of their more popular ones. So it joins the ranks of the Defenders and Iron Fist and Luke Cage. And we'll see what happens with Punisher and Jessica Jones. I know Punisher was one of Netflix's other popular shows. So we'll see how that goes. One of my buddies in our group chat had actually mentioned that it's possible that it might end up on Disney Plus, like Disney's streaming service, or it's possible it could be that Marvel wants to place these characters in one of the upcoming MCU phases. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes and how everything works out. But as it looks, Daredevil did not survive Thanos' snap. Sorry, Matt Murdock. Moving on to video game news. So, it's been a while since I've discussed Destiny 2, but they recently just posted a huge update on the future of Destiny. So, on Polygon, they did this really nice article about it, and from it, they said, the next year of Destiny 2 content has been revealed in the form of 2 schedules from the game's developer Bungie. From December 4th, 2018 to sometime in August of 2019, Destiny 2 players will have something to do about every week, from new raids to seasonal events to increased power levels. The calendars are split up into content for all Destiny 2 players and those that buy the game's annual pass, which costs $35 for 3 mini expansions, Black Armory, Joker's Wild, and Penumbra. All players will gain access to holidays and the usual rank resets. Items like pinnacle weapons are for everyone. However, each season will also offer annual pass players larger content drops. This seems to be slightly different from each release, with each mini expansion offering new exotics and weapons for Destiny 2's most dedicated fanbase. According to Bungie, the goal is to turn Destiny 2 into a true live game experience, one that changes week to week as seasons advance. While the annual pass isn't needed to experience some of those Destiny moments, seemingly all of the truly new content will be locked behind the annual pass's price tag. It's currently unclear what awaits Destiny players at the end of those 3 seasons, although history suggests either another large expansion or possibly Destiny 3. So, my takeaway from this is a fairly large announcement for Destiny. Is it enough to bring players back after so long? I'm not really sure. I think one thing that could really benefit Bungie at this point, especially with having a Game Pass, paying for expansions, and especially with their Ingrams and like their loot boxes, I feel like they should just release Destiny 2 as a free-to-play game. They already gave it away at BlizzCon. I feel like if they switched over to a free-to-play format for Destiny 2, this game could potentially go on for years and years and years and years and years without actually having to ship actual physical content again, or have like a base game and just keep releasing expansions for it, because I don't see Destiny 3 potentially doing that well. I know Activision's already said that they were disappointed with how well Destiny 2 has been doing, especially its longevity and the consistent player base. So this may be a way to bump that up at relatively no real cost, and that would garner people, a free-to-play game. You pay $30 for an expansion. You're essentially paying $30 for all that content. People are going to do that. But that's my thoughts. I don't know. The future is yet. I guess we'll see in the future what the future holds for Destiny. And moving on, Fallout 76. If you're living under a rock, you probably don't know this, but it released recently. And while some players are having a blast, which a couple of my buddies in my group chat play it almost every other day, if not every day. But some players are having a blast in the multiplayer wasteland, while others are encountering a wide variety of annoying and game-breaking bugs, and they're discovering that some features do not work as advertised. Tensions rose even further when 2 weeks after launch, the game went on sale for up to half of its launch price, all while Bethesda largely gave unhelpful stock responses to player complaints. And if history shows anything, you can't do that and think that it'll be okay. It's gotten bad enough, though, that players are advising each other to try refunding the game. On Reddit, the Bethesda Game Studios community team finally apologized for not speaking more frankly and being transparent to the community. They said, "We're sorry and understand this was not the right approach, and we'll work to make a better bridge between you and the dev team at Bethesda Game Studios," a representative wrote. In that post, Bethesda says that from now on, it'll detail upcoming patch notes quicker so that players know what's coming through the pipeline, essentially. They said, "We didn't want you to think the silence meant nothing was happening." To that end, though, the Reddit post details some high-level fixes that are coming to Fallout 76 starting on December 4th, including mending the creepy bug that got players stuck in power armor. Some highly requested tweaks will also include a limit to the player's stash and the ability to respec your special points starting on December 11th. Over at the Fallout blog, Bethesda also says that it is working to decrease the download size for updates. The Reddit post says that the actual updates will include more changes than those detailed on the forum, and it reassured fans that it's listening to its complaints. Quote, "Please don't stop letting us know how we can improve our communication and what else needs to be addressed in the game," Bethesda said. So my thoughts on this: Bethesda should just, number one, Bethesda should go get advice from ZeniMax Online, the ones who made the Elder Scrolls Online. Because when that game launched, it had a laundry list of problems and bugs and glitches. Some were game breaking. It was terrible. But they kind of flew under the radar, releasing patches, fixing stuff. They were pretty open and transparent with their community, and now the game is a really solid MMO. Like, that game is wicked fun. So, and I don't know if that's what they're doing or not, if they've had people from ZeniMax Online be a part of their dev team, I'm not sure, but it seems to me like they're making the same mistakes that ZeniMax Online made when they easily could have just seen what they did and not do that. I saw a few comments on social medias asking game reviewers from IGN, Kotaku, stuff like that, Destructoid, if the game should be re-reviewed once the game-fixing patches are released, and I personally think it definitely should. I mean, No Man's Sky was re-reviewed after it had all those game-fixing patches, because once it fixed the game, it was not the same game that it was at launch. Because at launch, it was a complete derp fest. It was not good. So if Bethesda actually puts out a decent patch that fixes the game-breaking issues, I definitely think that places like IGN and Kotaku, Game Informer, they should re-review it again for that current build. I know that there's also a class action lawsuit in the works against Bethesda for this, but I think by the time Gamescom or even E3 comes around next year, this outrage will be completely gone. I don't think people will be focusing on this anymore, because by that point, people are going to be looking for more Elder Scrolls stuff and Starfield and stuff like that from Bethesda. So back on my BlizzCon 2018 episode, I mentioned briefly that Jason Schreier has it's been known from him, that there is indeed a core Diablo game being created for PC and consoles. Now, there is definitive proof, in my opinion, as he has released an extremely lengthy article about the past, present, and the future of Diablo. The biggest takeaways are this. In the article, he says that he's spoken to 11 current and former Blizzard employees, all of whom spoke anonymously because they were not authorized to speak to the press. And honestly, I don't blame them, because